The year is 2001. The Matrix came out 2 years ago, and bullet time is all the rage. Kids everywhere can't stop fantasizing about slow-motion murder, and it's the perfect time for Remedy Entertainment to release Max Payne, a dark and gritty cop drama about a grizzled detective avenging his family by murdering countless criminals slowly. And while I definitely shouldn't have played this game when I was a kid, I definitely did.
Hey everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Completionist New Game Plus. And today, for Video Games of the Movies Month, I am revisiting Max Payne, as you can tell from this Noir comic book style. This game is a strong emotional connection for me, as when I originally played it for the show, both of my parents were tragically in the hospital, which was really tough for me. But now that I have some distance from all of that, I'm excited to revisit Max's brooding noir storyline and slow-motion gunplay. Because Max Payne only cares about three things: his wife, his kid, and his job.
Murdering people in slow motion is now a time-tested trope in the video game world. But when Max Payne was first released, the idea of doing bullet time in games was pretty much brand new. The Matrix had put the concept in the cultural spotlight, but it took Max and his gritty slow-mo antics to bring bullet time over to games, and it's never really left. As a result, Max Payne feels ahead of its time in some ways, but also very much like a product of its time. The game is still really fun, but it's always tough going back to a game whose major innovation has been done better 100 times since then. And while there were 2 sequels to Max Payne and 1 shitty movie starring Mark Wahlberg, the series never really took hold as a major franchise, which is a bummer, because when I first played this game as a kid, I dreamed about the super awesome movie version I wanted to make, and spoiler alert, my version did not include Marky Mark, but it did have the rest of the funky bunch. And it's a bummer that the movie sucked, because the basic story here is still pretty solid. Max is a renegade DEA agent, undercover with the mob, on the hunt for distributors of a new drug called Valkyr. And it's personal, because a pack of junkies high on Valkyr busted into his house and killed his wife and kid, which is 2/3 of literally everything in the world that Max cares about. But they can't take away his job. And as Max digs deeper and deeper into his investigation, he uncovers a massive conspiracy, because this is a noir story, and of course he does. And in between story sequences told through sequential comic art, Max is going to have to shoot his way through endless waves of enemies with a variety of guns and weapons, ranging from Uzis to baseball bats. But murdering people quickly went out of style ages ago, and Max Payne knows that super cool murder cops are never in a rush. So you have to manage his bullet time meter, which allows you to aim and react more quickly. And if I'm being honest here, that's 90% of what this game is. It's just killing guys in slow motion, gleefully cackling as you launch molasses-like bullets directly into their dumb henchman faces. And while there are several game modes, like New York Minute, which is basically a speedrun mode, and Dead on Arrival, which only gives you a limited number of saves, I had access to my old save file, which means I didn't have to play through Max Payne 4 times like I did the first time around. So I jumped right into Dead on Arrival and didn't even bother with New York Minute this time, because it doesn't get you anything. Now, this decision to not play New York Minute mode did not come lightly. It's not like I just said, you know what, I've done enough completing in my day. For those of you who don't know, I stream every single episode of me completing these games for New Game Plus live on twitch.tv/thecompletionist. So when we completed Dead on Arrival mode, the Twitch Collective and I talked extensively about New York Minute. Twitch chat unanimously and overwhelmingly wanted me to not play New York Minute mode, especially since looking at the scope of the game, we had already done this once before, and it was just a waste of time. If you want to join us on twitch.tv, we'd love to have you. But the biggest challenge was honestly just getting the game to even work, because I originally played this on the PC, and it's super janky now. I had to use a mod pack called Max Payne Remastered, and it still crashed all the time. And I don't have time for that kind of nonsense, because I'm Max Payne, and I only care about 3 things:
my wife, my kids, and my dogs. Actually, wait, no. I mean, there are 4. Yeah, I'm Max Payne, and I only care about 4 things: my wife, my kids, my dogs, and my job.
So I played Max Payne as a kid, and then again when I was going through a difficult time as an adult. And while this third go-around didn't carry as much emotional turmoil as the other two, it made me realize that Max Payne is a game rooted in that time. In fact, it's basically the year 2001 distilled into video game form. And I'm not just talking about the Matrix influence, but the intense darkness and grittiness that feels like a distinct product of the late 90s and early 2000s. A weird and tumultuous time to be a teenager, but also probably a weird time to be a person too. It's especially fitting in that sense that Max Payne uses comic books for its story sequences, because comics were also enduring a weird time of edginess, and honestly, it fit perfectly with this game's dark, surreal crime drama. Because it's very dark, sure, but there are also all sorts of strange little flourishes, like truly strange and beautiful hallucination sequences, and the constant references to Norse mythology. As a teenager in the early 2000s, I ate that shit up, and it truly elevated what could have been a by-the-numbers mystery about a renegade cop who doesn't play by the rules. Although, don't get me wrong, Max definitely doesn't play by the rules, and neither does the game sometimes. I understand that some amount of jankiness is to be expected with a game that's 20 years old, but there were lots of moments this time where I felt like this game was screwing up and getting me killed. And while I couldn't see this when I played it originally, that's sort of where this game sits, at this weird intersection of the past and the future. It's diving into a slow-mo mechanic that would become almost a standard in games of this type, but still isn't quite advanced enough to fulfill its ambitions. Like iPods, which were also released in 2001. We all had our minds blown by the idea of a small pocket-sized rectangle with all of our music on it, without realizing how far that content was gonna get pushed into the next decade. And just like iPods, there's a nostalgic charm to Max Payne. Bullet time is no longer mind-blowing, but it's still freaking fun. Diving across rooms in slow motion while shooting guys in the head just feels right. And it always has, and always will. It's also got an approach to difficulty that feels slightly old-fashioned, with its gradually unlocking difficulty levels. I was pretty glad that I just got straight into the hard stuff with Dead on Arrival, because I don't know if I still have the patience to play through this game 4 times again, especially with all this jank. Plus, there are so many incredibly challenging games these days that Max Payne is kind of refreshing. Dead on Arrival is hard, but it's always fair, and if you're smart about managing your saves in each chapter, it's pretty easily accomplished. The same can be said about the secret level that you get for beating it on Dead on Arrival, in which Max has to blast his way through tons of super hard enemies, but with the benefit of unlimited bullet time. It's really chaotic and tough, but it also feels like it's the purest distillation of this game's stylized approach to gunplay. It's like if you took the lobby scene from The Matrix, which was still the height of cool in 2001, even though the movie had come out 2 years earlier, and then you cranked up the slow-mo badassery up a few notches. Do I wish it all looked better? Yeah, sure, of course I do. It's ugly. But again, it's ugly in a way that's very much a product of its time. As I've gotten more distance from Max Payne, its faults become more and more charming to me. Maybe that's because of everything that this game and I have been through together. But when I think of Max Payne, I think of dimly lit shootouts with angular henchmen who can shoot me through walls. Now, I haven't played all of the sequels somehow, but a super slick, polished Max Payne game just wouldn't feel like Max Payne to me. And besides, Max doesn't care about looking pretty.
Commissioner, I only care about 4 things. My wife, my kid, my job, my dogs.
Gerard, what are you doing? I'm just an editor. I don't want to be the commissioner.
I also really like The Incredibles from Pixar. My brother Barry's really cool. My dad, my sister. I'm a huge fan of volleyball, basketball, chocolate. Chocolate's one of my absolute favorite things.
Okay, fine. Unlike Max Payne, there are lots of things that I care about, and this game is one of them, because while it hasn't aged very well, Max Payne deserves a larger place in video game culture than it has. Maybe it's because the movie was so bad that everyone associates the name Max Payne with Marky Mark and his burger chain. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just a case of bullet time being so heavily used for a while there that all the slow-mo shoot-'em-up games and movies just started to blur the lines together. Or maybe there are just too many gritty cop stories like this that it's difficult to give any particular one the attention it deserves. I honestly don't know. But in playing through Max Payne again, I was reminded of why I've always loved this game. Because as much as it feels like a product of the late 90s and early early 2000s, there's a ton of specificity. Take Max as a character, for instance. He's definitely fixated on his wife, his kids, and his job, but the game goes out of its way to get into his head. Even the design of the character, which is based on one of the developers, makes him look like a real-ass dude rather than just some stock video game hero. And the game didn't need to throw in a bunch of surreal and supernatural imagery, but it does anyway, because it reflects the way that Max's mind has been totally unmoored from reality by the loss of his family. As a result, the game's choppiness and dark, kinda ugly aesthetic almost ends up being a feature. I ended up feeling Max's disillusionment with his gritty, messed up world. Do I think I would have felt this way again by the end of a fourth playthrough? Probably not. But since I got to jump straight into Dead on Arrival, completing this game was a breeze. And the quick completion time helps make sure that the slow motion shootouts never got old, because the entire game really is basically the same thing over and over again. It was less of a strain this time because I only had to play through it once. But Max doesn't really change or unlock new abilities, outside of a few weapons like a super dope baseball bat. But when your hero remains so static on a gameplay level, there's gotta be something else to carry you through the game, especially on the third or fourth playthrough. And in Max Payne, it's bullet time. And yes, I know, I've said the phrase bullet time way too many times in this video already, but I can't overstate how mind-blowing it felt when this game first came out. Watching people dodge bullets in slow motion in a movie is one thing. It looks cool and elicits exactly the kind of reaction you'd expect. Whoa. Yeah, that's the one. There's a reason that so many shooters implement slow motion now. It just feels right. It also feels right that Max Payne doesn't get all the credit it deserves for its contributions to gaming. Almost like it has to do its work unappreciated from the shadows. A dark and gritty game that doesn't play by the rules.
Commissioner, I figured it out. There's only one thing I care about.
Gerard, I told you, I don't want to be a part of this bit.
You! And my job!
God damn it!
There aren't a huge number of unlockables in Max Payne, but there are a couple of little acknowledgements for anyone who puts in a little extra effort. Like a secret room in the tutorial level that contains a congratulations and some cool ammo. Cool. Thanks. The same goes for the game's big bonus room, the slow motion free-for-all that you unlock for beating the game on Dead on Arrival mode. Getting an extra battle with unlimited bullet time is a pretty good reward for beating this game, which means that surely there's even a better reward for blasting your way through that final challenge, right? Well, kinda. There's a developer room with logos and concept art and pictures of everyone who works on the game. It's not mind-blowing, but at least they're throwing me and my fellow completionists some kind of bone. And like I said earlier, there's nothing at all for beating the New York Minute mode, despite the persistent internet rumors. But completing this game a second time through was a piece of cake, despite all the technical issues that I had. It took me basically no time at all and reminded me of some good times and some not so good times. And I don't just mean the year 2001. And while this game's hard-boiled, grim sensibility doesn't blow my mind like it did when I was 14, I'll probably always love this game. Not even Marky Mark can take that away from me. While I re-completed Max Payne, there were 38 deaths, which is actually fewer than last time, and I actually feel pretty good about that for Dead on Arrival mode. 2 secret rooms unlocked. I knew they were there from the last time, and I still think this isn't the greatest reward ever, but there will always be something about the phrase secret room that makes me happy. 9 hours of total playtime, which is way less than if I had to unlock every difficulty level in that order again. And finally, 0, which is the number of wives and kids that Max has. But I'll always have the job. I think. Actually, I haven't played all the sequels, so I don't know. I'm sure he's fine, though.
Max Payne is a weird game to me, because it's tied to so many memories, and it feels so specific to those particular times in my life, just like it was specific to the time it was made in. But bullet time will always be cool, and even on Dead on Arrival mode, this game is still pretty fun. If I also force myself to play New York Minute mode again, I'm not so sure I'd be so chill about it. But I found Max Payne to be more than worth revisiting. So, with that in mind, guys, I still give this game my completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it! That's all the time we have today, guys, so please, as always, let me know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. Hey, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button. Let us know what games you like to see at the movies here on the channel. I've been Gerard the Completionist, and if you're still here, do me a favor, wave. Because I'm counting. I'm always watching you.